So here it is, after way too long. Part 2 of the LE420 review. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go check that out. This is mostly just kind of a addition to that, answering questions, and I'm here to just show more of the quirks that have come up in my own personal use, and hopefully it helps all the rest of you that weren't super sure about it after part 1. And as before, if there's something I didn't address, or something I missed, or you have other questions that I hadn't even thought about yet, just let me know, and I'll try to come up with another update, hopefully quicker than this time. First of all, when running a dot directly on the device, you do in fact get a great lower 1/3 co-witness. Most brands aren't perfectly standard, as you can see from this comparison to this Vortex dot, but it lines up perfectly with my primary arms magnifier at the same spacing that I run it on a proper mount. You can also fit those aim-point micro spacers in there if you need that extra height for NV use, or you want to line it up with a ScalarWorks magnifier mount. The balance and weight shift in this configuration is great, but if you're C-clamping the pressure pad like we tend to do, then depending on your dominant hand, you'll be blocking almost all of the white light or the IR stuff. The forend of the rifle, even this 12-inch one, casts a decent amount of shadow from either side, even with my hand out of the way on a vert grip. The illuminator isn't really affected when you have the focus as tight as can be, but in my opinion, this is only best utilized on something super short or a bullpup where the forward rail space isn't limited and won't be obstructed by the shooter. Pretty much how the Mepro Light dot I referenced in my previous video was designed with the Tavor in mind. However, with something like a railed gas tube on an AK or a small PDW, this combo would really shine if you have a night vision requirement. Passing the unit around to different shooters, I noticed that depending on who and how they were using it, the onboard fire button was awkward to reach, so you might be stuck with needing a Velcro wrap the tape switch onto something. Not a huge deal, but something worth noting if you're seriously planning on running a meme setup like this. So far, at least with the big brands unfortunately, third-party switches have housing too large to clear both the focusing knob and the battery cap to fit completely into the socket. You might be able to get away with shaving the edges down and brute force it, or splicing the OEM plug into an aftermarket switch, but for most of us we might just be stuck with the factory switch. Which again, is still usable, it's just obviously not as good as what we all get used to now. On an AR with a fixed front sight block, the unit's completely out of the way for using the sights, and as we talked about earlier, if you're running a dot on there, you do get a good lower 1/3 sight picture. The Zero so far holds true after a lot of firing and cooling off. Even after removal and replacement on the rail, there wasn't any noticeable shift at 50 meters. I have to say, I am impressed with the ratcheting adjustments with the QD lever, and how well this thing holds up to the elements. Something else I've noticed that I've only been able to find out with time, much like the PECs I've used in the past, if you leave it switched to anything but off when not in use, it'll slowly drain the battery over time. I figured this out with a fully charged 18650, and I've tried it out again with a fresh pair of CR123s, so just be sure if you have it stored or whatever, keep it switched off and take the batteries out if you want to maximize their life. It does take a pretty long time though, so if you are one to keep your stuff ready to go, just check them every couple of weeks and make sure it needs charging or replacing. Having that little cable to just plug in makes it pretty easy too. So, summing up, if you're looking at a Holosun device, and you can compromise the size and weight of the LE420 with that of the 321, I think the $200 so price increase is definitely worth it for the additional features you get. Even if you don't use the white light and mount another, the unused extra width is less than 5mm that of the G-Ball A3, which is what I still see a lot of guys running as far as civvy market units. The ability to mount a red dot makes the unit a lot more flexible for use on a wider range of platforms. Being able to use rechargeables for economical training in austere situations, or CR123s for when you're just in the tundra or you need that maximum duty runtime and brightness, makes a great option for dudes who don't get issued batteries. And I've still never seen the slightly cheaper LE420R anywhere.